Call this regular council meeting of the Village of Grand Manan to order at the Grand Manan Community Center on April the 3rd, 2017 at 7:30 p.m. And for tonight we have for prayer Pastor Muskumsky from the Emmanuel Family Church. And first of all, I'd like to say that it's nice to see you staying here. We've got kind of used to your face, and we appreciate you.
Still seems strange. Our Father, we bow in your presence this evening, and we just come and invite your presence in council meeting this evening. We pray that you be with each one, and as they discuss and as they make decisions concerning our island, we just pray for guidance and wisdom and direction, Lord, we pray this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This year is the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Vimy Ridge. It's commemorated on April the 9th. 7 people from Charlotte County died during the assault on Vimy Ridge. One of these men was a Grand Mananer, Private James Alexander Gilmore of North Head. In total, 96,000 Canadian troops participated in the 3-day battle. The first day alone, 2,000 men died. Over the next 2 days, the total rose to 4,000 dead, and an additional 6,000 were wounded. And the sacrifice these men gave enabled us to live in a great country like Canada. The Health Committee is having a meeting with our MLA Minister Doucette and Minister Boudreau, the Minister of Health in Fredericton, on April the 19th of this year. And we had a meeting scheduled for back in March, and it was a snowstorm, so that got canceled out. Then it was rescheduled for April the 3rd or 4th, along there somewhere. But we couldn't provide enough people to meet with them, so again, it's been scheduled on the 19th. The banners for the veterans, 12 has been ordered, and they're waiting to see how these turn out before more is ordered. There is still time to place an order. The Village of Grand Manan and the Grand Manan Legion are supporting this MW for the cost of $250. On Wednesday night, April the 5th, 2017, there will be a meeting at the Grand Manan Community School. 3 representatives from Energex, the company that is interested in the wind power, is going to be in attendance to answer questions. So let's keep an open mind until we hear all of the information. The meeting starts at 7 p.m. in the Great Hall at GMCS. Okay, then the next thing is the disclosure of conflict of interest. Adoption of minutes of March the 6th, 2017.
Mayor, I'll move we adopt the minutes of March 6, 2017, that's circulated.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Additions to the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that we add funding for the Grand Manan Crime Stoppers under 10.5.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Turner. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 7 is the RCMP report, and tonight we have Constable Stoddard to present the report.
Little box? So you can see council members from our handout for the stats for the month. We had 9 criminal code calls, came out, 1 assault, 1 theft under, you see mischief, driving while prohibitive, 1 uttering threats, rash communications. We get down into the others, we get lots of this is for everybody on the island, we get lots of abandoned 911 calls, which, if you leave the island, make sure your doors are all shut tight and the windows are all closed, because if you have alarms, we get the strong winds here and it sets them off, and that means I get called at 4 in the morning to get dressed and trudge through the snow and walk around your entire house and check all the windows and make sure everything is secure. So it's, just please make sure that all that sort of stuff is done, especially when it's a big snowstorm.
That's very kind of you to do that.
Yeah, it is very nice. Well, we have to go, right? We get to go. Other sort of calls, you know, I mean, the Liquor Act would mean probably like open liquor in vehicles, or you know, people on the beach with beer, or just stuff like that. We actually do get quite a few mental health act calls here, so that's, we aid the hospital in dealing with people that are in mental crisis, so, which can be an interesting call for us. It's can get a little bit dangerous because these people are in mental crisis. As you can see from our provincial statutes, at the bottom there, I'm a very big proponent for traffic, and I think 70 tickets in a month shows that we're trying to stem people from speeding, but not only speeding is the reason why I personally do lots of traffic work is we call pipeline work, because if we're trying to deal with the drug problem on Grand Manan, people transport their drugs through driving. So when you have to come to a check stop, it's not only I'm checking to see that you're sober, I'm also checking for other signs. Not saying people here, but I mean people that are driving through and get the smell of weed and stuff like that, and pull them over, and we usually get some you know, people just driving with it right sitting on the console, which is amazing. You stop them. So that's the reason why, you know, kind of you see lots of our roadblocks and lots of traffic initiatives. I personally have caught people on the back road doing 120 in a 50 zone, which is a $600 fine, and that's been, I've done 3 or 4 of those in the last 4 months. So people don't seem to learn. And then the number one thing that I get is people saying, well, how come you don't give me a warning? Well, warnings don't work. If anybody can attest to that, I've been doing this for 11 years and I'm very big on traffic, and warnings do not work. So always carry your driver's license on you. I know I always ask, but if you ever get in an accident and I don't know who you are, that's how I'm going to find out who you are, who I can contact your family if you are in a collision somehow. So is there any questions for me?
You're getting by pretty easy.
Well,
Taking
one
pity
thing
on
I'd
you.
like to say is that, you know, I think it was mentioned last month about what we're trying to do, you know, to combat the drug problem on Grand Manan. And I just wanted to add to that is that, yes, it's a police problem that we're trying to handle, but it's also a community problem. And we can't do it all. We need the support of the community, and we need people calling in and giving us info. And last year we had our big forum at the school, you know, for people to come in and, you know, talking about maybe getting source info. Your name is never used. So we just, if you're talking to people, try and push them. If they have info, please call us and let us know. That's how, because we can't just barge into people's houses and say, you're suspected of selling drugs, and arrest them. We're bound by the Criminal Code of Canada, so we have to have the help of the community. Is there anything else?
They're taking pity on you for trudging in the snow.
Yeah.
Actually, he's the traffic cop, we don't dare.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing. Lately we've been getting lots of, you know, the telemarketer scam stuff. So a lot of times they usually try and hit elderly people because that's what they do. They're trained to do that. Be careful of all sort of the Canada Revenue ones where they call and start asking you what your info is. We had someone taken for quite a bit of money with Scotiabank. So that's another one. They'll call up and say, oh, we're with Scotiabank, and somehow they find out your card number, and then they open up an account, and then they transfer money from your other account into this account, and they're gone. So it's just be very wary about, you know, people calling up, and if you have you know, neighbors and elderly neighbors, just make sure you ask them not to, give out information, especially, over the phone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have a 10-minute open session. So, okay, we'll move on to delegation or special speakers, and we have Ellen Snyder of Habitat for Humanity of St. John, who's going to speak.
Dim the lights a little bit if we need it.
Much better. Good evening, everyone, Mr. Mayor, councilors, guests. My name is Ellen Snyder. I am thrilled to be here, actually, on Grand Manan today. My last two visits, this is number 4. My last 2 have been in January for hockey, so you can imagine my thrilling ferry ride across today and the beautiful day I've had, so very, very appreciative. Thank you for the invitation. This is actually my first official public presentation since becoming the new CEO of Habitat for Humanity in St. John region. So I want you to know that the St. John region stretches from St. Stephen through to Sussex and all points in between. So although I live in St. John or close to it, and our office is in St. John and our restore is in St. John, which I'll talk about, I very much have my eye on the entirety of the St. John region, and I want you to feel good that that's the case, and that's why I'm here. And I want to talk a little bit about what it is that we do, because the plain truth is, lots of people know the name Habitat for Humanity. They know that it has something to do with housing, but oftentimes they think we give houses away. And that's not at all what we do. So part of my being here this evening is to talk to you about what it is that we do, and how, just to get the wheels turning in terms of how the Grand Manan residents might take advantage of what we have to offer. So the first thing I would like to share with you is a 3-minute video. I'm hoping that we'll be able to hear it. I think if we're all really quiet, we probably can. But it explains beautifully what we do, and I'm going to ask that if you have any questions that you hold them till the end, maybe jot them down. I have a feeling that most of your questions I will answer on my way through my presentation. So if that's okay with everyone, we'll give this a go and see what happens.
Habitat for Humanity works in almost 100 countries around the world, but what you may not know is that we also build homes right in your community. Many of us don't realize that 1 in every 8 families are challenged with the decision to pay rent or put food on the table.
that pretty much explains what it is that we do. So I think you can see that we don't give houses away. In fact, it's the furthest thing from what we do. We partner with families in order to get them to the place where they can own a home for the first time ever. And if you've ever had unstable housing at any point in your life, you understand how impactful having that stable roof over your head, and a roof that is your own, that you're paying for, how important that is. And so for our Habitat families, this affordable home ownership part of what we do has been life-changing, as it says, for them, completely life-changing. And in fact, we have one couple right now who lives outside St. John who have been working on their 500 sweat equity hours for the past year and a half. They are 25 hours away from receiving the keys to their new home, and you've never seen two people more excited in your life. They're beaming, both of them. So they're in the restore. I saw them last week. They're stocking shelves and doing all that sort of work, and the only thing that's on their mind at this point is finishing those sweat equity hours and getting to own their own home. So it's been a real thrill for them. Although that is our major undertaking, that particular, what was just described, we have a new program that we've never really used in the St. John region. It's been with us since 2009. And I'll get to that, I guess, in a second. It's called the Renew It program. But essentially, let me get back here from here. There we go. We are, as you can tell from the video, a registered charity whose philosophy is a hand up, not a hand out. We're more about building capacity with our families versus giving charity. It's not what they want. They've made that very clear to us. Habitat for Humanity International was founded in 1976 by the Fullers, and we are active in over 100 countries with more than 400,000 homes built worldwide. This is a really, really big movement and has been for quite a number of years. Habitat for Humanity Canada was founded in Winkler, Manitoba in 1985, and with more than 50 affiliates nationwide, we've built more than 27 homes in Canada, which is pretty amazing. Habitat Canada patrons are former Governor General Ed Schreier and his wife Lily. Anybody know who the Habitat patrons are for the United States and Habitat International? Any idea? Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind, everybody goes, oh right, yeah, right. Have been Habitat champions since 1984. And every year they hit the road. And when I say hit the road, I mean hit the road. They go somewhere in the world with their team and they build a home. And this year, to celebrate Canada's 150th, they're coming to Canada. Now, they're not coming to New Brunswick, mind you, but they are coming to Winkler, Manitoba, and now you can see why. That was the original Habitat home in Canada. And they're going to Edmonton, Alberta as well, and they're going to spend the second week of July building homes in those two places. And so the rest of the affiliates across Canada, St. John region included, we are going to do our own activities related to the Carter Work Project. I don't know, you may be surprised to find out that 2017 is actually the year of Charlotte County for us, because we have 3 homes being built here, one in St. Stephen, one in St. George, and one in Blacks Harbor. So all of this is happening at once. I inherited all of this a couple of months ago, and so I need to make this happen this build season, and I will do that. And it's going to be a very exciting time for everyone, I'm sure. As far as the St. John region Habitat goes, we were incorporated in '98. We've successfully, to date, built 15 homes and renovated 2 others, and providing essentially 17 families with affordable, safe, and decent housing, and really that's what we're all about. Our Restore, that they mentioned here, opened in 2007, and that's really our revenue engine. The money that comes from the Restore allows us to pay for our administration costs, wages and salaries. It allows us to pay for our fundraising costs, and it helps us to funnel money back into the build side of our business, because that's what we want to do. We have built, on average, 1 home in the St. John region since 1998. And my board tells me that by 2020, we will be building 5 per year, and we will scale up from there. So that is my job, is to get us there. Okay, so the Renew It program. This is the new program I mentioned. It's been around since 2009, but we really haven't done that much with it in St. John region. And this particular program is part of the organization's broader community development strategy. So we're looking at revitalizing neighborhoods, forging better community connections, which I suspect in a place like Grand Manan is, you know, you have your community connections, they're very strong already, but in more urban areas, sometimes it's a little trickier to pull that piece together. The Renew It program essentially allows us as an organization to expand our capacity to help people that are in need of a safe and decent place to live. Again, that is what we do best. So what is Renew It? Unlike our affordable home ownership program where we are building a house from the ground up for a family, The Renew It program is a home preservation program that mobilizes volunteers and community partners, same as we do with our other program, to provide minor renovation services for homeowners in need. So you can imagine there are all kinds of ways that we can define need. We're talking, it could be perhaps it's age related, perhaps it's illness related, or family circumstances, or a certain financial situation. But however that need is defined, those are the people we're looking to serve. The program focuses on health and safety related deficiencies, and that's really important. It's not cosmetic, it's not meant to be, but if you have problems with your home, perhaps, structurally, electrical, plumbing, fire safety, you name it, projects that are small in scale, $1,000 to $5,000, and a short duration, 2 to 5 days. We jet in with our team under the Renew It program, and we take care of that 1 or 2 deficiencies. So obviously, $1,000 to $5,000 is not a lot of money for home renovation, so we are looking to hit the really important stuff right away. The rest of it can wait, but let's really take care of any health or safety related deficiencies. So the idea is, as with our other program, that successful Renew It applicants repay of that loan, whatever the cost is for the project, to Habitat for Humanity St. John Region via a 0% interest secured loan over a period of 3 to 7 years. So again, it's a hand up, it's not a hand out, and that's an important thing to understand as well. So how does it work? Well, step 1, we need to find families. We get referrals from all over, sometimes from our current Habitat families or from community groups, churches, service clubs, for example, by reaching out to staff in towns and cities and villages, and families actually find us via our website, www.habitatstjohn.ca. That happens quite often. Step 2 is the application process, and when families are applying for the Renew It program, it's really not that different than applying for our affordable home ownership program, in that number 1 is the demonstrated need, as I already talked about. We need to identify the circumstances that prevent the homeowner from doing the work themselves, and oftentimes there are reasons why that's not happening. Number 2, and this is really important, is the willingness to partner with Habitat. Now, under the Renew It program, because it's, again, smaller and much more brief in scope, there's no formal sweat equity requirement, no 500 hours, of course, that you have to put in, but there is an expectation that the homeowner will participate in some way while the volunteers are working to get the house back up to scratch. And that could be, picking up a hammer maybe, if that's what you want to do, but it could also be serving drinks or sandwiches or helping with cleanup. It can be anything, really. It depends on the situation of that particular homeowner. So the third consideration around the application process is, of course, that ability to pay, because you'll remember we are talking about a 0% secured loan over 3 to 7 years. So what ends up happening is when a family applies, the file is given to the family selection committee in that area. We currently don't have a family selection committee on Grand Manan. We do have one in St. George, one planned for St. Stephen. We have one in Blacks Harbor, so I guess my message is we're certainly open to looking at a family selection committee for Grand Manan, if that's something that you think you'd be interested in. The family selection committee, really their job is to look at the financial suitability of the applicants. So are they able to pay the loan back? So here is their income, here are their expenses, is there room in there somewhere to pay back a loan over time? And we know for sure that what we're trying to do here is ensure that our families, our seniors, whoever's using this program, are successful. And that's why we really painstakingly go over the income piece, because we want you to be successful. And in order to do that, we know that your debt load can't exceed 40% of your monthly household income, or it's not going to work. So those are the types of things that we look at. So our volunteers, really they are the key to our success in everything that we do, whether it is our regular affordable homeownership program, whether it is the Renew It program. They are, no word of a lie, our heart, our soul, and of course our muscle. And the nice thing about Renew It is that volunteers of all ages can participate in this program in a way that they can't necessarily with the affordable home ownership program, simply because if you're under 16, federal law prohibits you from working on a build site. So we can find a place for pretty much volunteers of all ages in the Renew It program. So that's certainly something to recommend it. So I realize I've gone through that all very quickly. Are there any questions on the information that I've given you?
I just had a couple.
Sure.
Just one. The homes in St. George, Blacks Harbor, and St. George, would they, probably for younger families, like we're looking at 2 or 3 bedroom homes?
Yes, it depends. It depends on the size of the family, of course. Ideally, what's supposed to happen, as you saw in the video, is that we are supposed to have the family first, and then we build the house, give them essentially a choice between 3 plans, which one of these 3 would best suit your family, for example. It doesn't always happen that way. We don't always have the family in place at the time that we have the house, and this is a good example. Right now, the house that is going to St. George is being built at NBCC St. Andrews by trade students, right, under the very watchful eyes of their instructors. And so that house is being built in 2 pieces. We're going to truck it down the highway to St. George, put it on a foundation, and our volunteers will come in and do all the finish work on it. So that's sort of unusual though, you know, but I guess if we were looking for families, yes, typically we're looking for younger families, simply because you're looking at a 20 to 25 year mortgage, right, with the Affordable Home Ownership Program. And so that the span needs to be there, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, because they're paying it off over that span of time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Councillor Sturgeon's disappointed that he wouldn't be here tonight, but he's to a funeral in the Miramichi. He had to be a pallbearer, and he couldn't make it back to catch the 5:30 ferry. But he expressed his regrets.
In the Renew It program, if you were helping someone who wasn't physically able to work with the team, does that make a difference in whether they would be selected or not?
We can always find a way for the homeowner to help.
Okay.
Always. Yeah, regardless of circumstance. And in fact, the Renew It program really is tailor-made for seniors, for persons with disabilities, for, I mean, any situation, in a way that their traditional affordable home ownership program is quite, as you mentioned, centered on the family, right? But we realize there are all kinds of people in the community that may need a hand up with their dwellings, right? So we'll find a way to make that work.
Just one more, you mentioned the land.
Mm-hmm.
Land is donated?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that is certainly something to think about. Although it's interesting to me that, although you would think that that might be our biggest stumbling block, it doesn't turn out to be the case. So we have found that really land's easier to come by in some areas than others, obviously. I think that much is true. St. John, for whatever reason right now, is a little bit difficult. Areas of, sort of Hampton, Sussex, there's more land available there, more land available sort of down through Charlotte County, but there's really not much of a hard sell for municipalities who have service lots that are sitting there doing not much of anything. And so it's not too long of a conversation before they're offering them up, to be honest. It's
That's what I'm wondering.
quite amazing,
if
actually.
It's mostly rural, or if it is in a subdivision, a new subdivision, could be either.
Yes, yeah, you name it, absolutely. Wherever the service lot exists, then, assuming that other things are in place, absolutely, we will look at that as a possibility. Yeah, rural, urban, we have people in need all over, so.
Any other questions? I want to thank you very much. It was a nice presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, under new business, Canada Border Servants Agency, Councillor Morse.
I think there was a letter that was circulated with the agenda packages. This is a follow-up, I believe in the fall, many of the young person attended an opening over on Campobello. There was a meeting afterwards, and the discussion was that a number of the communities around Passamaquoddy Bay were working together on some tourism initiatives. One of them is the small cruise ship initiative that we had in Merritt Island. In talking to the group in Friars Bay on Campobello, they've been doing some work on trying to have Canada Border Services kind of be able to clear a small cruise ship on Campobello as opposed to having to go to St. John. And they're particularly frustrated since they have Canada Border Services on Campobello, but they're not trained for marine clearance, they can only do land clearance, which is a whole other set of red tape. So through some of those discussions, we had agreed that as groups we would try to write letters and say that this is really hampering the development of the marine tourism industry, essentially through Passamaquoddy Bay, because of our proximity to Maine. If boats are coming in and have to go all the way to St. John to clear customs, they're less likely to backtrack towards St. Andrews, Campobello, Grand Manan. Friars Bay has written a letter, I believe the Campobello Tourism Association is, I think it's going to the St. Andrews Town Council to write a similar type of letter to what was circulated. I realized after I sent it that we need to change the first paragraph just a little bit because this was an earlier draft. But I would like to make a motion that the Village of Grand Manan write to Mr. Goodale asking for better access to Canada Border Services agents in rural communities for marine tourism industry.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morris. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Brown. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And the meeting that I was to Campobello, there was a brainstorming session afterwards. And Robert Peacock, who is harbor pilot in that area, he takes some ships to Bayside, he takes them into Eastport. He has anywhere from Eastport to Boston, but most of his stuff is around Bar Harbor in the summertime, and he just said he wished that the Border Services could revert back to what it was when the Roosevelt Memorial Bridge was first opened. He said if it was 2 o'clock in the morning and you were going from Campobello to Lubec, there would be a sign out on a post. Please don't drive over the cord that rings the bell, I'm having a nap. So it has got kind of tough, but so now, the Canada 150 street banners. Councillor Turner.
I thought I knew what I was gonna say about this, but there's more information that has come up and we're not sure if we can use the brackets that they will be using for the veterans banners, because we're not sure how they're going to mount those on the arms and then take them down on the arms, so it would depend on if we can get the brackets up early. And then, you know, when we're done with the Canada 150 banners, we could return them to the Legion for them to put the other banners on. So there's some more conversation that has to take place on that. But basically what we were looking at is having the red Canada 150 banner made to fit those same brackets, use them through the summer, well, put them up as soon as we could into early fall. And then turn the brackets over to the veterans. I think it would be a nice way to recognize this. I'm not even gonna try to say what the 150th is because it's a really weird name. But I think we need to do something. So if it doesn't end up being this, then I think we may look at maybe trying to get funding for like the pennant streams, like from side to side on the road, you know, at different intersections, things like that, just something that says we're really proud to be part of that. So I'll take this back and discuss it some more with the Legion and hopefully bring it up next meeting.
Okay then. Any questions for Councillor Turner? Well, another lucky person. So 10.3, Smart Shift Summit. Councillor Brown is to report on the Shift Summit that he attended in Moncton on March the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council may or may not know, I attended a 2-day climate change summit on the 27th and 28th, and I sent a paper out to everybody's mailboxes, and I'll just briefly go over what was discussed here. Opening remarks were by Mayor Don Arnold of Moncton and Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, Canada. The Mayor emphasized the importance of local municipalities in the fight against climate change. Some ways that this could be done is by quantifying and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which myself and Rob are in the process of doing right now. And being mindful of coastal zoning bylaws, investing in renewable energy, wind farms, hydroelectricity, creating public awareness, having storm preparedness programs in case of long-term power outages and things like that, as well as taking action to preserve our beaches and coastlines. We discussed emissions in New Brunswick. The province plans to be carbon neutral by the year 2030. It's a government policy, and it will happen one way or another, and that's generally how government works. And, one, instance of smaller regional power project was in Summerside PEI, a good example of locally sourced renewable energy. They're generating between 5 and 8 megawatts of energy using solar panels. And local municipalities are in direct control of 50% of New Brunswick's emissions. There's a major transformation happening in the electricity business. New Brunswick Power expects solar power and other renewables to be competitive with coal and generated electricity in the near future. The cost of solar is expected to be even with or below coal-generated electricity. Once customers start producing electricity, it will create grid problems, therefore they must reassess their entire grid system. They are currently working on installing smart grid equipment and are looking at changing their policy in April of next year. The province is currently looking at carbon pricing options, the first of which is a direct carbon tax, which is based on the market and the prices set by the government. And the second pricing mechanism would be cap and trade system based on pollution credits given to companies. And on the final day, we discussed coastal erosion and storm surges. The worst estimates have the sea level rising by 2.5 meters by 2100. The best case scenario is a 1 meter increase in sea level. The natural increase should be around 0.35 meters. Graminan and other coastal communities will be at the forefront of this issue in the years to come. Every 0.35 meter increase in sea level increases the risk of storm surges by 25 times. Graminan must remain committed to preserving natural coastal barriers and sites, as well as constructing barriers if needed. And that's all I got.
Do you have any questions for Councillor Brown?
We just wanted to know who the speakers were. Obviously someone from Hydro New Brunswick or River City Power.
The director of ND Power is
Yeah.
there, and I can email you a list.
Oh, fine, good.
It's quite extensive, but it's quite a few people there.
It's a lot of presentation.
Yeah.
Well represented,
Yeah,
the audience.
over around 300.
Good report, Councillor Brown. Canada Day, relocation of Canada Day events in the celebration of Canada 150, and it says Mayor Green to speak. Mayor Green isn't going to say much, but as I was approached and they wanted me to make the decision of moving it from Seal Cove to the Anchorage. And I was not going to be the person that made that decision.
This is not an election year.
Ed, I guess the thought that come to my mind at the time was Seal Cove had started this many, many years ago. And it just seemed to be the place, like the greasy pole was at the creek. And it just amazed me that the people that would go to Canada Days there. And I don't know whether the people that attended from Seal Cove would go to the Anchorage or not, I don't know. So it's there for comments. And our rec director is well informed on this situation.
I told you I had no problem making that decision on my own.
Is it true that the greasy pole is no longer, is it?
I don't know whether they got back to the,
I called Russell, I spoke with Jo and she said it is broken, but she's not sure if they repaired it or if they're gonna repair it.
Right.
It'd be terrible not to have that.
Yeah, it broke last year during the greasy pole.
That's probably almost 150 years old.
Be hard to do at the Anchorage.
It'd be a long one anyway, down there.
and another one was, the sand sculptures, could that take place at the Anchorage? The other one was the kids' money dig. So, one of the advantages was a bigger venue at the Anchorage. Also, if it happened to storm, the barn is there, you could get in the barn. And there is more washrooms there than there is at Seal Cove, because we put a porta potty there for those days. So, I guess,
Are you fishing for a motion?
I'm not.
Make a motion to
Well,
discuss.
I'll make a motion as long as all council gets to vote on it. I'll move we do not move Canada Days from Seal Cove.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Moses. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Turner. Question?
I had the chance to speak with Hannah Mullen for a little bit, and she explained this to me, and, you know, there are benefits and there are disadvantages, obviously, to everything, but, I think it should be discussed a little bit further, but that's just my opinion. Whatever council wants to do.
Well, this is a venue for discussion, not the question.
Question is a chance for people's opinion, or
I guess I'd like to hear both sides of the story, because I always thought that there's great venues, high tide and Seal Cove.
Well, that's just,
I
the
just
hot
think
tub
that's-
at Seal Cove, it's mostly the draw was a greasy pole.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, but if that's not implied,
But the beach things are pretty big. The
They are as
beach
well.
things are
Very
big.
well. It's a nice flow across the bridge.
they can't happen at the Anchorage Beach.
I don't think it has the sand for sand sculptures,
Right.
does it? I wouldn't think.
I'm not sure.
Well, the sand's better than Seal Cove, I suppose.
I mean, to me, one of the things with Seal Cove is that people, I mean, you see it on Facebook every year, I did this again, I went to this again, this is something I've done since. It's, unless there is a good reason, I'm not saying there isn't, I would hate to change that up on people who bring their families every year and count on that sort of tradition. I think it's a nice deal for people, there's so many things that don't stay the same. That it's nice to be able to keep some of them if it's feasible.
The only thing that I have noticed is in trying to do things with the kids, a lot of times, because of the timing with the tide in Seal Cove, it ends up overlapping, the kids' activities in Seal Cove are at the same time as the Anchorage, and if there was some way to coordinate both schedules, it would be good, because you end up having to choose between one or the other, but that would just, that's a comment from me. I have no problem with staying in Seal Cove, but it does make it tough some years.
Because it is split now, is it not? For the activities in Seal Cove, then they move to races and wet slides at the Anchorage, or is that 2 different days?
2 different days, I think.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that our rec director has input. I'd like to hear his input before we take this to a vote.
Well, there's just one other thing, that they're thinking that it'll only be a 1-year thing. It's Canada 150, they wanted to have a bigger celebration. Okay, Chris.
Oh, sorry.
Go, Chris. Keep quiet, please.
I will admit, this is probably my idea mostly. And as the mayor just alluded, it is the Canada 150. We're celebrating 150 years of Confederation. The biggest thought behind the process was to celebrate with a bang. I mean, our annual budget for our Canada Day is about $5,000. We have that in the budget again this year, but I've also applied for an additional $7,000. The thinking behind that is Seal Cove does not have the infrastructure needed to hold a venue of that size. I know we were talking about because on a Saturday, it's the same Saturday as the farmer's market in North Head. They said, well, why don't they have the farmer's market in Seal Cove? Well, you could, but there's no power, there's no water, there's no infrastructure needed for those people, which you have at the Anchorage. as well as this year, we were thinking about, I don't wanna give away anything, I don't wanna promise anything that may not happen, but we're looking at venues this year that we would need a large area, like the field, which you can't do that in Seal Cove. You can't put this on the beach. I'm sure everybody knows in Seal Cove on Canada Day, between the hours of operation, both sides of the 776 are completely blocked off. It is kind of a safety issue, and I'm sure the RCMP would agree with that. We thought this may help with some of the congestion by locating it down at the park. We're also looking at different venues to go into the evening this year, which we're hoping, when you came to the park, you came to the park to stay all day. You came, there was activities through the afternoon. We're looking at activities for food, different options to go with our annual barbecue and cake celebration, some other festivities leading into the evening to finish off with a bigger display of fireworks. So all the ideas that we have can't work in Seal Cove because of the limitations of the area and the infrastructure, whether it's power, water, even the facilities. We basically have to beg the Kinghorn to bring a porta potty down for the day, because they know if they left it there after dark, it's going to be either on its side or it's going to be floating in the harbor. So with the anchorage, they have a lot more, they have all the infrastructure that we need. And I know we've talked with the Boys and Girls Club, I'm not sure what Councillor Brown has discussed with Hannah, but at the time, the Boys and Girls Club thought it was a fantastic idea, because the outcome for them would be that people know that on Saturday, they're going to be all-day events with the family, that they would probably take the camper down on a Friday night and stay until sometime on Sunday. So the anchorage would be completely sold out for them, which they would benefit from that. But other than that, without giving away a bunch of details, that's pretty much the gist of the move. When Alyssa and I and Amy discussed it, we thought maybe for this year, where it is, all the emphasis is on the 150. I mean, Councillor Turner is referring to the banners on the telephone poles. Everything you see on TV is all about the 150. We thought, why don't we do something big for the 150 here? We discussed the option of keeping the greasy pole in Seal Cove. I mean, it's just a matter of scheduling. High tide this year is at 6 o'clock in the evening. So logistically, it's going to be a tough day, because normally you have the flag raising and the pancake breakfast in the morning, but after that you have to wait until the tide gets down to do the beach activities for the kids, leading up to about an hour before high water to do your greasy pole. So logistically, it's going to be a little tougher this year, but we thought because of the greasy pole, and people absolutely love sliding on that pole and dipping into 10-degree water, it's still one of the things that people do remember. I mean, as a kid that grew up in Seal Cove, I still have trophies that I won from Canada. It was huge. So we wanted to be able to keep that part of it as well, but we thought for this year we could relocate the majority of the events and still offer the greasy pole, or still offer little things like that. Everything else we can do this year, bigger and better with the location and what the park has to offer for the infrastructure.
Well, that's certainly the other side of the story. Is it just for this 1 year? You're thinking? Or?
That was the thinking. At least for this year, see how it works. And at the end of the day, if everyone comes back and says, that was great, why don't we do it there more often? Or, that was great, I don't want to see it there again next year, we gotta go back to Seal Cove, then that's fine.
I think having heard that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's the information we kind of needed. Why?
But you gotta overlook the traffic. You're gonna have the traffic congested down there just as bad as it is in Seal Cove. Worse, because the road is narrower. There's nowhere down there to park that the elderly can get to the events. So you're gonna have golf carts to run them back and forth.
We did that once in Seal Cove. Like for the beach activities, we ran.
The last few years, they blocked off the entrance from the wharf, or from the bridge, from McLaughlin's Dam to the beach. They did have golf carts, car carts, steep.
I'm not saying I won't support it, but I'm just saying that the traffic congestion down to the Anchorage will be worse than it was in Seal Cove. Because you've got a narrower road and people's gonna be parking on the road. They're gonna be parking at a place that they feel if they wanna get out, they can get out.
But also, Mr. Mayor, if there was a fire in Deep Cove, for instance, and you wouldn't have a congestion of.
I'm just saying that congestion isn't a reason. You've got congestion in both places.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
But for services, for fire services, and extra, yeah, it would be.
And
There's less homes in Anchorage than there are along 776 from Dyker's to Deep Cove. So,
Listen, it's not gonna matter if we have it in Anchorage, or if we have it in Seal Cove, Deep Cove, or if we have it in Hawaii. People aren't gonna be happy.
I'm really happy we have it in Hawaii.
Yeah, I think.
But our thought process was, for this year, to change it up, to do something different. And if council wishes to come back and say, no, we feel that the Seal Cove is where we have our Canada Day, then that's fine. We will come back to have the same old Canada activities that we always do. That's not a problem. This is an idea. This is what we do. We brainstorm, trying to figure out better ways for the community, and seeing how it's a milestone, but why not?
how many on your committee?
I mean, listed Amy,
Smart girl.
so it's easy to tell that I don't need to make much decisions.
I thought it was being changed forever, that's all, when I first read it.
Okay, then, you've heard both sides of the story. Was it Paul Harvey? Now you know the rest of the story. So all those in favor?
What's the motion?
Going to the Anchorage?
No, it was to do no.
Not going? Oh,
The motion was to not move it out of Seal Cove.
okay. All those in favor? Opposed?
Renee? If Renee
Nay.
made those, yeah.
So, okay,
Motion's defeated.
the motion's defeated. Now, you gotta have a motion to go to the Anchorage.
So I'd make a motion to move it to Anchorage this year,
So you're moving to move to the Anchorage, moved by Counselor
1 year.
for 1 year.
Yeah, this year.
Mhm.
So it's,
It's been moved by Counselor Fitzsimmons that we go to the Anchorage for 1 year, seconded by Counselor Brown. Question. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Motion carried. Recreation Director's Report.
Oh,
Nope.
I had to,
Oh, right, sorry about that, I wonder what I scribbled in there.
As most of you know, I think Councilor Turner reported on this a few months ago. We are in the process of establishing a Grand Man chapter of Crime Stoppers. It's taken us a little bit of time to sort of get up and running, but I think it's gonna be a really good initiative on the island. We're at the point where we're ready to establish our bank account, and we had a meeting with, the executive Crime Stoppers New Brunswick on the weekend. They're having one of their semi-annual meetings the first weekend in May. So I think there's an opportunity for people to go and to learn there as well about some of the things. What I think is encouraging is that there's already been tips go into Crime Stoppers from the island on things. And so even without having the chapter up and running, it seems that there is information about it out there in the public. One of the things about Crime Stoppers is obviously it's a fundraising mechanism to try and have money there for tips that do come in to pay out. So as a startup, we were hoping that there would be some willingness from the village of Grand Man to support Crime Stoppers, at least initially. And I'd like to make a motion that we would donate $200 to Crime Stoppers.
You heard the motion by Councillor Morse, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Fitzsimmons. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
Recreation Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I start, I do want to make one thing clear about the Canada Day thing. Moving the Canada Day celebration to the Anchorage does kind of hinge on getting the funding that I applied for. So basically, if we get the funding to make the celebration the way we'd like to, we need the Anchorage. So council has given permission to do that. If we don't get the funding, then we have to go with what we have for the budget for 2017, then we won't have a choice but to have to keep it at Seal Cove. That's good. All right? Okay. So, my report, I wasn't here last month, so I'm just going to finish up on a few items from then. The go-go gymnastics that we had over March break was 100% success. I know the mayor has commented several times about coming in during the week with the kids here, and the facility was completely filled with children of all ages. We had 68 available spots. That's the maximum number that they could take, and all 68 was taken. When we started out, we started looking for some potential sponsors to pay for some underprivileged kids that couldn't afford to go during that week. We had kind of an ambitious goal of 24, and at the end of the day, before we were finished, we had enough money to sponsor 34 children. So 50% of the kids that went to the go-go gymnastics that week was all paid for. So that was a fantastic week, and to hear the stories about go-go after that week was well worth every penny that it cost for people to been. So I'd like to thank all the people who gave for the 34 kids to participate that week. It was fantastic, the generosity. But Raymond Inn is known for the generosity, especially when it comes to kids. Pickleball, I think is one of the things that almost sounds like a broken record every time we get up here. I'm always talking about pickleball, but it's always a good thing. Pickleball is continuing to grow. This week, the pickleball actually had 4 new members that had never played before. They come out, and I had a chance to speak to a couple of them, and they're absolutely thrilled with the opportunity to play. They're not people that generally play sports. Pickleball is the type of sport that anyone can play and have fun and compete. So with the increased numbers, the 2 courts that we provided in the gymnasium just doesn't cut it anymore. So we're trying to come up with a way to squeeze a 3rd court in the footprint that we have. So we had a lot of brainstorming, and we've come up with an idea that we thought would work. Since then, I ordered some extra wide tape with a nice bright blue color on it to identify the different lines, because the gymnasium has got different colors. There's white for badminton, there's black for basketball, and red for the volleyball. So we picked blue for the pickleball. Since then, the tape has come in. And last Tuesday afternoon, Greg Russell volunteered his time, and Greg and I spent all afternoon, about 4 hours on our hands and knees laying out pickleball tape. We started the day before, but the Boys and Girls Club came in and cut us off a little early, and next thing I know, those little darlings had most of the lines picked back up. I don't know what the supervision was, but I'm just teasing. But we finished that last Tuesday afternoon, and they actually played Tuesday night, and all reports back was excellent. So they went from being able to accommodate 8 pickleball players to now they're able to accommodate 12. The issue they were having is so many people were having to sit and watch. People were losing interest, so they didn't want to sit there and wait that long. So now we've increased it by about 33%, which is great. We also had several members of the pickleball club attended a tournament in Dieppe. And since then, I've had 2 or 3 different ones come to me and say, they've gone to different events, Moncton, Dieppe, Nova Scotia, Fredericton, and they've yet to find a location that is as nice as ours. So it's hard to believe that we have that type of facility, but we do. So So that's great. You'll notice if you're walking around the community center that there's a brand new AED hanging on the wall. We recently purchased that. We installed it between the gymnasium and the fitness center. The community center has always had one AED. It was kind of in a common area between the community center and the arena. One of the concerns was with efforts to try to secure the building better, was locking the doors between the arena and the community center. The concern is what if the doors were locked and someone rushed out to get the AED and the door closed behind them and they couldn't get back in? Time is very important for that. So we recognized that, brought the new AED in. We got the exact same model, exact same everything for the two machines. So if someone happened to grab one or the other, those of us that are trained in the AED, no matter which one you grab, you're going to be familiar with it. We have the extra child keys for them, which basically reduces the voltage by 50% because of the location of the board and growth within the building as well. So, which is a must. The Youth Employment Fund. I applied for a grant for the Youth Employment Fund. Basically, it's a program set out by Department of Education to help new students coming out of university or college, help build work experience, life experience. So we were able to identify a potential candidate who is graduating in June. We've set up some meetings with them, as well as a caseworker out of St. Stephen. Filled out the application, there's been some interviews, as well as some resumes generated. So now we are just in the process of waiting to hear back from that. The outcome of that would be that they would give us funding to fund this person's wages for 6 months. So that would be great for us, and even better for the individual coming out of school to help build some life skills. EpiPen program. I've touched on this one a few times. I guess we're getting closer and closer to trying to roll this program out. Kind of hoping that we'll be able to get this out by late spring, early summer at the latest. And part of this process was to try to identify certain locations within the community that would be the highest risk for someone needing the EpiPen for anaphylactic shock. I've identified 5 areas. It was hard to do because you're really trying to guess where you might think an accident might happen. So it was hard, but we've identified 5 potential locations. Again, this is just brainstorming, and it's open for anyone's comments. But the 5 locations was our ferry, the community school, here at the community center, at the community pool, as well as the Anchorage Provincial Park. And when going through the motions, I was talking with the nurse practitioner in Sussex who started this whole thing. She was on the phone with me as we were brainstorming. And when I told her, she asked what locations, and I mentioned the ferry. She couldn't believe that there was no EpiPen on the ferry. Because basically what would happen, if somewhere after the ferry left, if you ate something or get stung by a bee up on the deck, sunning in the lounge chair, and you had an anaphylactic shock, you'd be dead before the boat got in. It's plain and simple. So that was a very important area. What people don't understand is the EpiPen doesn't cure you. All it does is buy you time. There's been several cases since these EpiPens have come out in these different communities where a second EpiPen has been required for injection to give that person enough time to get the medical attention they needed because they were so far away from a hospital or they were out somewhere. The perfect example is the Adair's Lodge in Sussex. Sussex was the first community to roll this out. They have 34 public locations in Sussex that has these EpiPens. Adair's Lodge put one in the following weekend after they had them in. There was a young man and his daughter out on a poker run. The father was stung by a bee, went into shock, and they ended up having it, and they're stuck in with the adult dose. The ambulance didn't arrive in time. He went back into shock. They ended up giving him the junior dose that was also in the kit, and the junior dose, the second dose, was actually what saved his life. So, very important. So these 4 areas that were kind of identified are the key. And with those 5 areas, what the hope would be is after we get this program and roll it out, the hope would be is to put the word out to the community, whether it's through a mail out or a flyer or a community session, and tell people this is what we're doing, this is the importance of these EpiPens, and hope that private businesses, people that own whale watching tours, people that own restaurants, come aboard and say, yeah, we recognize that that's important, I'd like to come aboard with that, how do I get one for my location? I will say that with the school, it was brought to my attention that the EpiPens were offered through the cost. It was under the responsibility of the school to pay for the cost for all the schools in Anglophone South. Our school decided not to participate in that program. And I will say, last Friday night during parent-teacher interviews, someone had an anaphylactic shock and they had to call the ambulance. Luckily, there was someone at school that had the EpiPen with them that they carried, that they were able to use it. Campobello, they put one in their school. And since there's one in their school, they've already had to use theirs to save a child's life. I found a partner to help try to ease some of the costs. There's a local group that's willing to help share the cost. What will happen is the EpiPens will be put in a case similar to the AEDs. It's an alarm cabinet, so if any little kids running around, open it up, the alarm goes off, and hopefully they'll close it and leave it alone. But it's to give the same idea as the AED. So the cabinets, unlike the AED, the door opens and you take the defibrillator out and take it with you. The EpiPen case, the whole front pulls off, and the junior and adult dose is right on the case. So you take it right with you to wherever you have to go. So those cases are around $250 a piece, and we've had someone come forward to say that they would cover the cost of those cabinets for all 5 locations. As well as I'm working right now on trying to find an industry partner. When I say industry partner, I mean a drugstore, hoping that we can negotiate something with them, either a shared cost, at cost, or even better, the pens to be donated. So the EpiPens have a shelf life of 12 to 15 months. They do expire. So the hope would be that after the initial setup, that either the place of businesses or these locations may be able to help fund the replacement EpiPens on an ongoing basis. So I think that was just about it. I've probably gone over my allotted time, but
Do you have a time?
I feel like I do.
Chris, why would the school turn down the opportunity to do that?
Deputy Mayor Moses, I can't answer that. This was a conversation that I had with someone that knew those answers, and they just passed the information on, saying that you need to put the school on your list because they didn't participate in the earlier one. I don't know the logistics. I don't know if it was offered to them. I don't know if it was, we'll put it in, but you have to pay for it. I'm not sure on that stuff. So that I can't answer. I don't know what the reason was behind it.
You say it would cost $250 to install one.
The cabinet costs $250. That's the alarm cabinet that holds one adult and one junior dose of the epinephrine auto injector.
What would be the cost to replace those in 15 months? So,
Roughly $250 a piece.
So,
Roughly.
so the initial cost of the cabinet, does that include 2 pens?
It does not. That includes the cabinet as well as Kelly and her staff would come down and do an afternoon of training. So we can get all the people that are going to be around these pens the most and give them training and kind of educate the public.
Is it still the case, Chris, that you can only help to administer, that you can't actually put that dose in someone else? Because that has been the case in the past. You can help them in any way, but you can't actually.
That I don't know, but we had a bit of a an information session in Sussex when I was away for one of the meetings. And the outcome of that was they would never recommend not giving someone what they need. It's the same as the adult and the junior. How do you know what child you're able to give, you know, a .015 dose compared to a .03? How do you make that call? But the nurse practitioner in Sussex that was giving this presentation said these things have such a safety margin in them now that you always have to err on the side of caution, never not give someone an injection. Because the other outcomes.
Please, Mary.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
(11:2). Arena maintenance report, Councillor Cheney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our memorandum of understanding suggests, or states that the arena board report to the village on any maintenance issues which may arise, same as a tenant would say to a landlord. And Councillor Fitzsimmons and Moses and myself went around late last fall, just before Christmas, and identified some various items. I'm not going to read them all off tonight, but I just want to say to council that we've noted them, and we'll be giving the report to the CAO. And whereas in the wintertime, or when the rink was operating, it was quite chilly, and a lot of these things couldn't be done, whether it's just cosmetic, some painting, repairing. But during the summer months, when the arena and the foyers and the mezzanines are not well used or not used as much, these could be carried out. None of them are really life-threatening, but they are to keep that part of the building up to great cosmetics. And we had, I can't believe it's been almost 6 years that we've been. So things need to be painted, some crack filling, some hardware issues on some doors, painting of the trims on the window sills and whatnot. So I'm just going to pass that over to our CEO and make note to my arena board that I did bring this to council and that we have the summer months to look into it. Just on a final note, I just say that we turned the machine off, our ecosystem off at 11:32 this morning. Charlotte County refrigeration were over, did a good thorough look. Found a small leak, which could have over the summer lost some gas. It just had a tight packing gland. Both sides are charged at 180 psi. Everything's great. It worked well during the winter months. But now we've got it sealed so that we can't lose any gases during the summer months. Did find a few connectors which were a little loose. Some of the insulation is getting ultraviolet degradation, so we might have to put some plastic caps on those, similar to you'd see on heat pumps going into a house, just to cover those up. So it was a good shutdown, and it worked well. I think with our new compressors this year, we'd probably save maybe in the cold winter months, maybe $1,000 a month on electricity. So those new compressors worked well. We didn't have any panics with minor hockey teams coming over not having ice, or with ladies tournaments or men's tournaments. It was good. So I'll be passing that report of the maintenance items to our CEO.
So, Councillor Cheney, you're saying that the rink has been operational for 6 years?
I can't remember. It seems like how long, when did we build the building? 2010 we started? And I think we've been in there.
I think, this building here, I think, was probably 2008 it was started.
When we started,
Yeah.
I don't know when the ice.
2010, minor hockey.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, Time flies when you're having fun, when you're a hockey player.
Well, really does. Really does.
Councilor Cheney, does the arena board, go out and solicit or have any venues in that space when the ice is out?
No, that is turned over to our rec director and the village to operate during those summer months.
Okay.
And through recreation and Rotary days, we have activities happening in the back. I don't know if it'll be pickleball, probably, I don't know, pickleball courts or not, the way it's growing.
That was my thought.
Yeah, Kate comes up fairly easy. It's quite hard. We try to get the grease and everything from Rotary days off the slab before we start making ice in September.
Approval to pay the following invoices. We don't have any, I guess. Closed session, financial, trash barrel tender, and property acquiring village property.
I'll move we adjourn to closed session.
Heard the motion by Councillor Morse that we go into closed session.
Second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Moses. Question?
Mr. Mayor, I said the rec director might take part in 13-2.
No problem. I don't anyway. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Oh,
It's nice to see McCumsky stay for the whole meeting. He's under a lot less pressure now that he's a manual.
There you go, yeah. Thanks for coming down.
My pleasure.
Is your presentation? If you would, yeah, that'd be especially the renewal. Yeah, absolutely.
I will do that.
Oh, good,
Okay.
good.
Thanks
Thanks a
very much.
lot. Thank you.
Thank you.